Hello, friends. Hello, I'm here. So sorry I'm late. Uh, Give me 1 second. I forgot to plug in my mic. Hang on 1 minute. Click on in, say hi if you're lurking in chat. I'm going to let notifications click in for a minute and plug in my mic. I'll be right back. All right, let me just do a quick little audio check here. Make sure my mic is good. That. All right. All right, let's see. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. Welcome on in. Want to make sure my mic is good. Meg P, hi honey, how you doing? Good afternoon. Sarah, hope you're still here lurking. Hello. Echoes, how you doing, honey? Welcome on in. I know Lana's still alive. That's why I'm late. I was over there handling chat. I know she's still live, so I have hers up, but I have the volume down because I'm noticing, of course, the usual trolls over there. So anyways, I'm keeping an eye on my phone for her chat as well because I am her mod over there, one of them. And, you know, hi, Tina. Hi, Tammy. Hi, everybody. Welcome on in. Jazz King. Hi. Welcome on in. Kelly, how you doing, honey? So yeah, okay. I'm keeping an eye on Lana's live from my phone. I'm going to let my mods know. So who's here for mods right now? Echoes, Meg, for fuck's sake, Fitziana. I wonder if she's in here yet. Either way, Swamp Rose. Hi, honey. Did I mod you yet? Let me get over into my chat. I'm going to have to dip out of Lana's and get over into my chat because I meant to. Swamp, do you show up as a mod? Because I did mean to mod you. So let's fix this. Let me get over here. Hi, everybody. Welcome on in. If you're getting in, thank you for being here. Oh, good. Okay, so Swamp shows up as a mod. Okay, so mods. The reason I'm asking, depending how many mods I have in here. What up, Tarok? Okay, yeah. Swamp, please keep an eye on chat. Mods, you guys know I pretty much allow for everybody to say whatever they want, but one thing we're not going to do today is if you see people in my chat trying to say that either of these survivors, Bethany or Dylan, were asleep and woken up at approximately 4 a.m., you can go ahead and block them and remove them from the chat, hide them. You don't have to, you can time them out, whatever you need to do. We're not going to do that. We're definitely not going to have anyone in chat today saying that either of these people were asleep and then awoken at approximately 4 a.m. because that is a bald-faced lie. And I'm not going to have people coming into my chat spreading that kind of misinformation. No one was asleep. Bethany and Dylan were not asleep. They were never asleep. Okay. I was awoken at approximately 4 a.m. bullshit. No. At 3:51 a.m., she is saving a contact to her phone. They are communicating with each other at 4 a.m. She was not awoken at approximately 4 a.m. So if you see anybody coming into my chat saying that Dylan and Bethany were asleep or that Dylan was asleep and awoken at 4 a.m., you can go ahead and time them right out. Okay, mods, I love you. Thank you so much. Who do I have? Meg P, Echo, Swamp. Eddie, I'm sure, is going to be popping in here somewhere. Quality Emerald, hello. Thank you for being here. Echoes, you got me? Okay, cool. You get what I'm saying, right? Mods, you guys know I pretty much allow anybody to say whatever. I'm cool with it. But if anybody comes into this chat trying to say that Dylan was asleep and awoken at 4 a.m., time them right out because they're spreading misinformation. So, yeah, I know, Tar Rock, right? So yes, thank you everybody, by the way, for all your well wishes. I am going to try and keep this one short today. Yesterday was 4 hours, and I got to tell you, I had a banging headache for the rest of the day. So I'm trying to limit my screen time here. That's why even for Lana's live today, I was mostly listening and trying not to be in chat because I shouldn't be staring at screens for too long and things like that. So I'm going to try and keep it short and sweet today. I am too. Hello, welcome on in, Yvette. Hi, darling, where you been? Welcome in, Docket Decoder. What up? So good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Love it when you're here. Docket Decoder. Bree, hello. Exactly. Zero tolerance for misinformation. And listen, I'm not perfect, right? I've gotten things wrong before. I have no problem saying, oh, fuck, okay, I was wrong, right? I'll even clarify one of my posts a couple weeks ago. What did I say? I said I thought the text messages maybe were relating to Brett Payne, that I didn't think it was the roommates. And, well, I was wrong. It was the roommates' text messages, right? So it's cool. I can say when I'm wrong. It's fine. We're all wrong. Carrie, how you doing? Welcome on in, honey. Bree Sully, what up, fam? Welcome in. If there's anybody I missed, I'm sorry. I'm checking my chat now. Eddie, there you are. I was just saying Eddie should be in here soon. P. Fox, darling. Welcome on in. Eddie, P. Fox, I was just letting my other mods know. So I noticed what was happening in Lana's chat today is the usual trolls were over there trying to say that Dylan was asleep and awoken at 4 a.m. That's a bold-faced lie. And if anybody comes into the chat today trying to say that she was asleep and awoken at 4 a.m., you can go ahead and time them right out. Because it's a lie, and I'm not going to tolerate it today. I'm not going to have anybody in this chat saying that either one of these bitches were asleep, because they weren't. And if somebody finds that offensive, oh well, be offended and go cry about it in a corner. I don't care. Okay? It's just how I feel about that. They weren't asleep. They were wide awake. They were aware of what was going on. They knew some shit was happening in their house. And all the people claiming that it's fucking suspicious that Brian took a selfie at 10:31 in the morning are the same people who are not thinking, oh, it's not suspicious that Bethany for an entire minute from 8:41 to 8:42 a.m. is walking, apparently, around the fucking house taking photos. What's she taking pictures of? For a minute straight. Go ahead and open up your camera and see how many photos you can get in for a minute straight. What is she taking photos of? So if it's suspicious that Brian is taking a picture of himself on a Sunday morning, okay, then it's also suspicious that Bethany at 8:41 to 8:42 is taking pictures for a minute straight. Okay? So I don't want to hear nothing about it. I'm not going to it is what it is. I'm not one of these people that's going to be like, oh my God, they're survivors. You can't be mean. You can't. No, these are adult women who absolutely knew something was happening to their friends, air quote, friends in the house, and they didn't do shit. Okay? Except sit in the room with each other and send out fucking texts and hop on Instagram and Snapchat and Indeed and whatever. I have a daughter their age. Okay? I have a daughter their age. Mercy cat. Everybody give some kitty emojis for my Mercy cat because I love her so much. Welcome in, Mercy cat. Love you. Anybody? All right, Leslie, Billy, who am I missing? Echo 444. Hello. Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. If there's anybody else I missed, I'm sorry. Lady Speedwell, I was on a rant. Okay? I was on a rant. I love you right back, Echoes. You get what I'm saying, right? Okay? Fact of the matter is, I have a daughter their age. Okay? And I can tell you right now that if my daughter had friends, if this was my kid, and I'm reading these text messages and I find out that these two survivors who are supposed to be my kid's friends knew some shit was happening in the house and didn't do anything to help my daughter. Okay? Mm-mm. I don't care. I don't care. It is what it is. I'm going to say it. Okay? These bitches were wide awake. They knew what was going on. They knew what happened in their house. I don't care what anybody says. They were not asleep. No one was asleep. So enough of the bullshit. Just enough of the bullshit. They weren't asleep. Maddie was calling Bethany at 2:53 a.m. We were told Maddie's last outgoing call was to Jack D. Right? So just, love you guys. Mods, like I was saying, any of my new mods just joining in. I noticed in Lana's live today, there was a lot of people in the chat talking about Dylan was awoken at 4 a.m. If you see anybody coming into my chat talking about she was awoken, fucking time them right out for the rest of the live, because I'm not going to have that kind of bullshit misinformation in my chat. They weren't asleep. They weren't awoken at approximately 4 a.m. They were wide awake, and Dylan was adding a new contact into her phone at 3:51 a.m. The phone activity proves they weren't asleep. So I'm not going to have none of that here. Okay. Just wanted to get that out of the way. I appreciate every single one of you who has sent me some kind words, okay, and healing thoughts and vibes, and I appreciate that so much. And I had quite a few people who sent me a little something for coffee in my Cash App, okay? And I love you so much and appreciate you all so much. I know some people hit up the super chats yesterday, and if I forgot to say thank you to you for your super chat, I'm so sorry. Did not mean to. But thank you to every single one of you who sent a little tip and a little, it helps. Tippy Hadron Collider. I love that name. First live. Hope I'm feeling better. And thank you so much. I appreciate you. Welcome on in, Tippy. First live. Appreciate you being here. If there's anybody else who's new, say hi in the chat, even if you're lurking. Say a hello. So what we're going to get into today, friends, first one's first that I figured we should look at is the inconclusive data. That one's pretty interesting. That's where the state didn't redact the names of who they created likelihood ratios for. And I'll just tell you right now, it looks like Ethan was the highest match for DNA under Maddie's fingernails, which is interesting. Not tape Meg, but they did wrap. I can't sleep with it on though. It absolutely, I can't. It almost feels like it's a constant, someone is squeezing me and won't let go, right? So I definitely can't sleep with it. But thank you. Yes. Facts and truth only, please. Hello. Welcome on in. I'm new. Pick me. Pick me. Ow. All right. Well, see, here's the thing, right? Waited for daylight? Nah. Nope. I wouldn't have. Here's the thing with why I have a problem with this, right? And this is why I have a problem with it. Because Thomas Oaxaca, greetings to you. Welcome on in. I guess my biggest problem with this, Tarok, is that, yes, I could understand if you were scared, maybe waiting. I can see what you're saying, right? I would have waited for daylight to leave my room. You wouldn't know if someone is in the dark, hiding and waiting for you. I could agree with that, except they're literally wide awake, texting on social media, whatever the case may be, right? So, I tried to give a little bit of grace in the beginning when we first read the first part of the text messages that the state wanted to introduce. And I'm I was giving grace, saying, for all I know, these girls thought it was like their roommates playing another prank. And that's why they ignored it. That's the only thing I could think of, right? Because it was normal. The pranks were normal. So I tried to give it a little bit of grace with that. But now knowing that she had to walk out of her room and cut across that living room to get down to Bethany's, we know how lit up that room is with the good vibes lights on and the string lights all over the walls and all of that stuff. There's no way they didn't see Xana laying on the floor. Because when you read the affidavit that they've included in their filings as well, they've attached them as exhibits, the state has. It even states that when they approached the room, they could clearly, the doors are all open when the police arrive, and they could clearly see Xana laying on the floor. Now, I know people are saying that's because Hunter opened the door when he got in, blah, blah, blah. I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm just saying, no, I don't think that's true. I don't think a door had to be opened at all. I think the door was open. I think she was laying on the floor. deceased, and that's exactly what the police are observing when they walk into the house. So I don't know how you left your room, went downstairs, and you didn't see her on the floor. She's right there. We all know how lit up that house was. Anybody trying to say it was pitch black in the middle of the night is a liar. The string lights hanging all over the wall, the string lights all over the curtain. Never mind the huge fucking good vibe sign and the string lights wrapped around the bar cart. The whole place was lit up like a damn Christmas tree on the inside. So I don't want to hear this bullshit that it was pitch black. It wasn't. I don't think the cops went in and flipped on all the string lights and the good vibe sign. Know what I mean? Those lights were all on when the police arrived. They left it exactly. They walked into it with the lights already on. Now, I guess maybe the kids who went in could have turned them all on, but I don't think so. I think they were already on. I think it was normal to keep it all on, if you want my personal opinion. I do it. I have my string lights. They stay on all night. I have my LEDs that stay on all night. Know what I mean? Anybody else? I can't be the only one. Instead of having, regular lamp on or something like that, you have your little string lights on. It still gives you some light and it's not burning up all your electricity, right? Makes sense, in my opinion. I don't know. But Yvonne, welcome on in. So anyways, we're gonna get to it. I have a lot of thoughts and I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, bro, just stop it. Just stop it. There's no way. There's no way they didn't know what was happening. And we know they know what was happening because they were afraid. They were in fear. They saw someone in all black in a ski mask and then just proceeded to hang out downstairs for hours on social media, calling their parents, whoever. Jody, hello. How are you? Welcome on in. Yeah, you have string lights too, right? That goes? Yeah, I leave them on. I like to leave mine on at night. Audrey, darling, hello. Welcome on in. Thank you so much for being here. Today might be one you like. Actually, I think maybe already you went over it. I was listening to your live. I just couldn't be in chat. I actually shouldn't even be doing this, but it's okay. We're going to try and keep it short and sweet. Christy Nevada, hi, honey. Welcome on in. All right, so let's get to this one. We're going to go to inconclusive data first. Start there. Which one is this? Was it 7? I can't remember. I think it's 7. 5. Okay, my bad. 5. Hang on. Make sure I get the right one. Yep. Okay. All right. Hopefully everybody can see this good. Mods, love you. Thank you for being here. All of you. Says there's 60 of you watching. Hit the like. Give it a thumbs up. Give it a thumbs down. If I miss you in chat, I'm sorry. Welcome on in. My mods will say hi to you. I'm going to be in another window reading. Audrey, I don't know if you were here when I was telling everybody. If you see mods, if you see people coming into chat trying to say that Dylan and Bethany were asleep and awoken at 4 a.m., you go ahead and boot them because it's a lie and they're not going to spread misinformation here. All right, let's get into this. Comes now the state of Idaho by and through the Latah County prosecuting attorney and responds to the defendant's motion in limine regarding inconclusive data related to item Q13.1. Defendant asked this court to exclude an ISP lab analyst, finding that the defendant could not be excluded as a contributor from Q13.1 because that statement does not provide sufficient context and because the defense's expert came to a different conclusion. Neither rationale supports excluding the testimony, and this court should deny the motion. Facts. Item Q13.1 is a swab of left fingernail clippings from Madison Mogan. Jade Miller, an analyst with the Idaho State Police Lab, analyzed the DNA profile obtained from item 13.1. She found the DNA profile, quote, indicates a mixture of DNA with a major profile, which is consistent with having come from Madison Mogen. For her analysis, Ms. Miller assumed a 3-person mixture and compared the DNA profile to the DNA of several other individuals related to the case. Her comparisons provided likelihood ratio results to show the likelihood that each person compared contributed to the DNA profile. Ms. Miller then determined for each likelihood ratio result whether it supported inclusion or exclusion, or whether the likelihood ratio result was inconclusive. As Ms. Miller explained to the grand jury, redacted. These ranges are consistent with Idaho State Police Lab's analytical methods in effect at the time of the analysis. Applying those ranges to her likelihood ratio results, Ms. Miller concluded that it is inconclusive whether the following persons are potential contributors to item 13.1. Jack DeCore, who had a likelihood ratio of 0.399, Kohberger, who had a likelihood ratio of 0.485, Ethan Chapin, who had a likelihood ratio of 3.33. It's very, anybody who, sidebar, any of you geeks out there into numerology saw this number and lost your fucking mind. I know you did. That was my sidebar. Xana Kernodle, likelihood ratio 0.201. And Bethany Funk, who had a likelihood ratio of 0.0233. She also determined it is inconclusive whether Brian Kohberger, who had a likelihood ratio of 0.0469, is a potential contributor to item 13.1. Stop here for a minute. So when the defense was saying that all of these people sit in the same shoes as Mr. Kohberger, meaning that their likelihood ratios were all inconclusive and or exclusionary, and for whatever reason, they only focused on Mr. Kohberger, who, as you can see here, his likelihood ratio looks to be the least out of everybody, other than Bethany, it would appear. Looks like he's in the range of Jack DeCore and Bethany and this Cole Barenberg fella. But when you look at the likelihood ratios here, Ethan Chapin has the highest likelihood ratio as being the contributor to the DNA under the nails, even though all of these people were determined to be inconclusive. So all of these people are inconclusive, including Mr. Kohberger, and yet for some reason, they still focus solely on his, likely because his DNA is also on the sheath. Just saying. The defense has disclosed Jennifer Bracamontes, a casework manager at Cybergenetics, as an expert witness in this case. Ms. Bracamontes utilized a different program than ISP to analyze the DNA profile obtained from item Q13.1. She determined that Brian Kohberger could be excluded from the DNA profile obtained from Q13.1. Argument. This court should deny defendant's attempt to exclude Ms. Miller's inconclusive results. So they even say inconclusive results. As to defendant. Defendant claims the result is unfairly prejudicial if it's used out of context and excludable because his expert came to a different conclusion. Neither basis supports exclusion. I mean, I got to tell you, I kind of agree here. Sidebar, let me come over to chat. Not going to lie to you. You know why I agree with this from the state? Because I think that it's imperative that they let Jade Miller get up in the stand and talk about all of this inconclusive data through Bicca Barlow. Right? Who is absolutely better at this than Jade Miller. Okay? So I think the reason why they should allow Jade Miller, I know it sounds wild because it's all inconclusive. In my opinion, this is exactly why you should allow her testimony so that your DNA lawyer that you just brought onto the team, who's far better at this than really anybody else, you can let her go at Jade Miller as to why Jade Miller, out of all of the likelihood ratios that she was looking at, chose to focus on Mr. Kohberger, even though there was another male. Even though that male victim had the highest likelihood ratio, right? Fact of the matter is, out of all of the likelihood ratios they created, his is basically almost the least compared to Bethany, right? So in my opinion, I say let them in, let this in. I agree with the state here when I say that they should go ahead and let this in. The court should allow this because it's all inconclusive. Know what I mean? It's all inconclusive. And when you're looking at the actual numbers, right, depending on the lab, each lab is different. Some labs, it's like 0 to 50. If it falls within the range of 0 to 50, it would be exclusionary. 0 to 100 might be exclusionary. It goes based on the lab, you know. When you're looking at likelihood ratios like this is why the defense is saying Brian Kohberger sits in the same shoes as all of these people, that all of them are inconclusive and or exclusionary. So this person shouldn't even be opining about the likelihood ratios, right? It's kind of like the defense's argument. But what the state is saying, well, yeah, I mean, we should. Your expert utilized this different program than ISP to analyze the DNA. Your expert determined that Mr. Kohberger could be excluded. So let's let these experts battle it out. And I got to tell you, I kind of agree with that. No? Anybody else? I agree with it. Let the experts battle it out. You know, I can see why the defense might think that putting this in front of a jury and not explaining to them that all of these people could have been technically exclusionary likelihood ratios, you know, that's the whole point of it. When you're selecting your jury, you want to select an intelligent jury, you want to educate the jury, and you want to make sure your lawyers are explaining to the jury precisely why, even though the lab looked at his profile out of all of these and looked at his likelihood ratio, it's going to be up to the defense to show why they shouldn't have. And they should have been focusing on the one that had the most. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just my opinion. I'm of the opinion that you need to let them battle this shit out, because it's the only way that the public and the jury are going to get the full context of what's happening here. Let these experts be brought in and let them battle it out, you know? And hopefully, if you know what you're doing and you select the right jury and your experts are clear and concise and they educate the jury properly on what they're trying to convey, you know? I don't know. It's just my opinion. Anyways, enough of my bullshit. Let's get back to this. So, they're saying here, basically their argument is that the court should still allow this testimony in because just because your expert came to a different conclusion doesn't mean we should exclude Ms. Miller's inconclusive results. Right? Cool. Everybody get that? Defendants claim that he would be unfairly prejudiced by the state, eliciting from Ms. Miller only the inconclusive result. As to the defendant, fails to account for cross-examination. Right. That's exactly kind of what I was just saying. You get to let them battle it out, and they get to let Ms. Miller come up and say what she's going to say, and then you get to your lawyers get to cross-examine her. And it's going to be Bicca Barlow doing that, likely. It's going to be Bicca Barlow handling all this, you know, DNA, IgG, inconclusive data, statistical analysis, all that bullshit. It's going to likely be Bicca Barlow doing most of that litigating, in my opinion. But anyways, so they cite all of these cases here as to why this should be allowed in, blah, blah, blah. Even if the state chose that strategy, right? Defendant could elicit during cross-examination the inconclusive results as to the other individuals involved. All those conclusions are in Ms. Miller's report. Moreover, the mere fact the defense found an expert with a different opinion than Ms. Miller does not make Ms. Miller's opinion excludable. I do agree with that. They have a different opinion on the data, and you need to bring them in and let the jury decide which one of them they believed the most, right? Or which one explained it better, conveyed it the best. Here we go. Ms. Miller's opinion is that she is blank. redacted. Ms. Bracamonte's differing view that the defendant can be excluded as a potential contributor does not make Ms. Miller's opinion excludable. I kind of agree with that. Let it in and let them fight it out. But it is very interesting that out of all of the likelihood ratios they developed here, it would appear Ethan Chapin as the highest one. So that's interesting, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. But either way, all of these people, so Jack DeCore, Cole Barenberg, Ethan Chapin, Xander Kernodle, and Bethany Funk. Notice who's missing here, though, right? Why don't we have the likelihood ratio for Kaylee and Dylan? Was there... I could have sworn... Didn't it say in one of these documents... Let me come back over to chat here. For fuck's sake, Fitziana, Audrey, one of my mods, anybody. I thought one of these documents here said that they assumed Kaylee and Maddie, and then one other unknown, unrelated person, right? For the fingernail clippings. So where's the likelihood ratio for Kaylee and Dylan? And why is Jack DeCore being included in this? Know what I mean? Why would a likelihood ratio be being developed for Jack DeCore and Cole Barenberg with Ethan Chapin and Xana and Bethany? Where's the likelihood ratios for Maddie and Kaylee and Dylan? I don't know. That's just my question about that, right? Can't be the only one thinking that. Where's the likelihood ratios that were developed for Kaylee and Dylan? Because Brian Kohberger's likelihood ratio is 0.0469. Ethan's is 3.33. That's like triple the amount of DNA. Compared to Kohberger. So the likelihood ratio, percentage, right? Not triple the amount of DNA, but like the ratio here. When you're looking at this, it would look like out of all of these people, based on the numbers, Ethan has the highest likelihood ratio of everybody. And there isn't one for Kaylee or Dylan. So I don't know. That's weird. Let's stop sharing that. It's just my opinion that's strange, but whatever. Just my opinion, not a no shit, right? So let's move along. Close out that one. Welcome, everybody. If you're in chat, sorry I missed you. Shit, did I just close out the wrong one? Annie. Sorry, guys. Give me a minute. What's this one? I did. What was the other one I had open? Shit. Hang on. I gotta reopen that one. I think it was the statistical analysis, right? Sorry, give me 1 second here. Oh my god, what did I do? Annie. Alright, hang on, guys. Sorry. That one. No. Wasn't that one. this one? Okay, let's see. That one is, okay. That one's that one. Number 7. It's this one. That's okay. I know I wanted to bring that one up so I could do them both together. Okay. So where is the other one that I had? Annie. Is that one? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, guys. So sorry. Let's do this. All right. Sorry, guys. It's taken me a minute. Sorry. Okay. There we go. Sorry, guys. I'm like really slow today. Sorry. Make sure everybody can see that. All right. Cool. Okay, cool. Ro, how you doing? Cammy, hi. Reese, how you doing? Sorry, I was in another window reading and I was trying to find my document. I accidentally freaking closed it out. If I missed you in chat, welcome in. Thank you for being here. Appreciate all of you. Catacomb, how you doing? Welcome on in. Carla, hi. Cole is, well, Cole is manager at like some Mexican restaurant in Boise, but also apparently at some point lived in Moscow, really close to the house. And for whatever reason, they found they had some kind of information. I'm guessing that Maddie at some point came in contact with this dude, which is why they were trying to exclude him, I guess. I don't know, create a likelihood ratio for him. They must have had information that he was some in the presence of her at some point. I don't know. I don't know. I do know he's like a culinary specialist with the United States Army and potentially manages a restaurant in Boise, but also lived in Moscow. So I'm not sure. I don't have the whole story on Cole or why his name is even mentioned, but hello, how are you? Black and Missing Children. Welcome on in. Grand Rising Love. Well, thank you, darling. Grand Rising Love right back to you. Stacy Martell, hello. Welcome on in. All right. So, well, yeah, I'm not going to fall down the whole, a hoe named Ida. I freaking love that name. I'm telling you. A hoe named Ida. Welcome on in. Good to see you. I'm trying to get over to my chat here. I'm sorry if I missed you. Yeah, Cole was a suspect. Absolutely, P. Fox. I think Cole is the one. Remember, I don't know if you were here yesterday, some of the documents that we read, the defense is saying like the state in their own discovery disclosed information pertaining to another person who was a person of interest in the beginning. They like turned over all this person's bank records and phone records and all kinds of stuff. Whoever this other person is. I have a feeling it's likely Cole here, and Cole was a person of interest in the beginning. So I don't know. The whole thing is weird. All right. So this next one we're going to get into is the state's response to the defendant's motion in limine number 6, reference to touch and contact DNA. I'll be in another window reading. We got 10 pages, friends. So mods, love you. You may have your work cut out for you today. I'll do yellow because I know people don't like the pink when I highlight. All right, comes now. State of Idaho, by and through Latah County Prosecuting Attorney, responds to the defendant's motion in limine regarding the use of the terms touch or contact DNA, or opining on the means or mechanism by which DNA came to be present on the knife sheath. This court should deny the defendant's motion because Ms. Nowlin's disclosures demonstrate she will not use the phrase touch DNA in a manner that will mislead the jury. Her opinions as to the DNA found on the knife sheath are admissible under Idaho rules of evidence, and her opinions are proper rebuttal testimony. Ms. Nowlin's use of the phrase touch DNA will not mislead or confuse the jury. The court may exclude relevant evidence if its probative value is substantially outweighed by a danger of one or more of the following: unfair prejudice, confusing the issues, misleading the jury, undue delay, wasting time, or needlessly presenting cumulative evidence. Ms. Nowlin's testimony, which will be consistent with her disclosures, will not mislead the jury or confuse the issues. As her disclosure indicates, Ms. Nowlin uses the phrase touch DNA only to distinguish that type of DNA with other kinds of DNA. Quote, DNA may be present on an item in the form of biological materials such as blood, semen, and saliva, or may be left on an item when it is worn, wearer DNA, or handled, touch or transfer DNA, end quote. She goes on to explain how DNA can be transferred to an item, including that it can be transferred from one person to another person before being deposited on the item. Quote, DNA can be deposited on or transferred to an item through transfer of bodily fluids to an item, wearing an item, and or handling an item. Primary or direct transfer refers to DNA transferring directly between individuals or between an individual and an object. Indirect or secondary transfer refers to the transfer of DNA from one person or object to another person or object through intermediary. She then describes at length various factors that can affect primary and secondary transfer, including the shedder status of the individual. Given Ms. Nowlin's explanation of primary and secondary transfer, no reasonable juror would be misled by her use of the phrase, quote, touch DNA, end quote, to mean defendant necessarily made physical contact with the knife sheath. Interesting. So they're trying to say, don't worry, we're not going to let her mislead the jury. If she says the word touch DNA, we will make her clarify that doesn't necessarily mean the defendant made physical contact with the knife sheath. Moreover, Ms. Nowlin's use of the phrase touch DNA is not unique but common within the field. Most tellingly, defendants' own DNA expert plans to use the phrase touch DNA in reference to the DNA on the knife sheath. Quote, no blood, hair, or DNA from him was found on any of the crime scene evidence except the touch DNA on the knife sheath, end quote. So his own expert is using the word touch DNA. And their expert is saying no blood, hair, or DNA from Brian was found on any of the crime scene evidence except the touch DNA on the knife sheath. Experts in other cases also use the phrase touch DNA in the same way, and then they cite their cases here, blah, blah, blah. You can go and read through all that if you want. They cite all the cases. They give you, all their citations for you to be able to go read where other people in other cases have used the word touch DNA. Defendant seems to suggest that Ms. Nowlin should use the phrase trace DNA instead of touch DNA. However, as Ms. Nowlin explains in her affidavit, she does not use the phrase trace DNA because it implies there was only a trace amount of DNA found. Using that term in this case would itself be misleading to the jury, quote, because a trace amount of DNA is not what was detected on item 1-1. So according to Miss Nellen here, she will not use, we'll read her affidavit. Ms. Nellen explains in her affidavit, she does not use the phrase trace DNA because that would imply there was only a trace amount of DNA. According to her, using that term in this case would itself mislead the jury, quote, because a trace amount of DNA is not what was detected on the item, end quote. Ms. Nallen's opinion is admissible as expert testimony. Quote, a witness who is qualified as an expert by knowledge, skill, experience, training, or education may testify in the form of an opinion or otherwise if the expert's scientific, technical, or other specialized knowledge will help the trier of fact to understand the evidence or to determine a fact in issue. The function of the expert is to provide testimony on subjects that are beyond the common sense experience and education of the average juror. Then it cites the cases. Courts like here, what does it say? Something, appellate court, right? Holding district court properly allowed expert to testify as the meaning of SS lightning bolts because the average juror might not have the knowledge. Courts should not overly restrict testimony that assists the jury. Another one here, holding the district court erred when it limited experts' testimony on suggestiveness of interviews because such testimony, quote, would have been helpful to the average juror's understanding of whether the interview was conducted in an overly suggestive way. All right. As Ms. Nallen's disclosure indicates, she will assist the jury by helping them understand concepts related to DNA that fall outside the common sense or experience of the average juror. Specifically, Ms. Nallen will explain primary and secondary transfer of DNA and factors that may affect primary and secondary transfer of DNA. No average juror would understand those concepts without the type of training and experience Ms. Nallen has. Will also opine that the amount of DNA found on the sheet and the fact that it came worse make it more likely the DNA arrived on the knife sheath because of primary transfer rather than secondary. That too will assist the jury because a non-expert possessing those same facts would have difficulty interpreting their significance. Ms. Nallen's explanations and inference both go to the significance of the defendant's DNA on the knife sheath, which will be a critical issue at trial, especially considering defendant's experts' proposed testimony that at least implies the jury should attribute little or no significance to the defendant's DNA on the knife sheath. Defendant argues that Ms. Nallen's opinion is inadmissible because she, quote, cannot conclusively offer an answer to the question of the when and how. But that's often the case with proper expert testimony. See State v. Hall. And then it goes into Hall. In Hall, a woman was found dead floating. Autopsy determined her cause of death was strangulation. At trial, the state called as an expert the forensic pathologist who conducted the autopsy. Although he could not be sure, the forensic pathologist was allowed to give his opinion on how the victim was tied just after death using photos showing a reenactment of the body as it postulated to have been hogtied either before or soon after the victim's death. The Idaho Supreme Court held the district court properly admitted the expert testimony, quote, that hogtied positioning was the most likely. The court explained that the expert's opinion regarding how the victim was tied was not based upon mere speculation or possibilities, but was based upon the lividity patterns observed on the body. The court also observed that the pathologist admitted the limitations of his opinion, and then it cites it, holding it was not error to permit an expert to testify about possible causes of the fire in this other case, okay? And it cites all these different cases, and, you can go read all that. We're getting to what's here. Ms. Nallen's opinion that the DNA on the knife sheath, quote, is more likely the result of a direct transfer than from secondary transfer, end quote, is admissible. For the same reasons, the court approved the admission of the pathologist's most likely testimony in Hall. So they're relying on Hall for the court to let it in. A couple of other cases as well, but they seem to be relying on Hall mostly. Like the pathologist in Hall, who explained his opinion was based on lividity patterns, Ms. Nowlin has provided a sufficient factual basis by explaining her opinion is based on, quote, the quantity of DNA detected on M2022-4843, item Q11, contained 0.168 nanograms. And the fact that the DNA profile obtained is single source. Wait a minute. Single source. Oh, I'm thinking of something else. Sorry. My brain is... Hang on, friends. Sorry, I just gotta rub my eyes for 1 second. Okay. So the quantity of DNA detected on M2022-4843, item Q11, had 0.168 nanograms of DNA. She's saying that's direct transfer, huh? I mean, that's less than a full nanogram of DNA. Sorry, I'm just talking out loud. Sidebar. I can't see my chat, but I'm talking out loud to myself here. I'm not sure how 0.168 nanograms isn't considered almost, I mean, that's like falling in the range of classic secondary, maybe even third person transfer. I mean, that's just my opinion based on the amount, but that's not even a full nanogram. Ms. Nowlin's full acknowledgement that she cannot conclusively state how the DNA arrived on the knife sheath does not mean her opinions are excludable as the defendant claims. It simply means she has admitted their limitations, which weighs in favor of admission. So Ms. Nolan here fully acknowledges that she cannot conclusively state how the DNA arrived on the knife sheath. But just because she can't conclusively state that, it doesn't mean that her opinions should be excluded. Defendant erroneously asserts Ms. Nowlin's opinion is not admissible because there is argument in the forensic DNA community that experts should not give such opinions. Defendant's assertion is flawed both as a legal and factual matter. Defendant's assertion is legally incorrect because consensus of the scientific community is not the appropriate standard to determine admissibility of an expert opinion. Quote, the question under the evidence rule is simply whether the expert's knowledge will assist the trier of fact, not whether the information upon which the expert's opinion is based and commonly agreed upon not whether the information upon which the expert's opinion is based is commonly agreed upon. Okay. State v. Merwin. All right. As explained above, Ms. Nowlin's testimony will assist the trier of fact. Defendant's claims of a universal agreement in the forensic DNA community is also factually incorrect. The defendant relies most heavily on a report titled Forensic DNA Interpretations and Human Factors, Improving Practice Through a Systems Approach. Specifically, the defendant relies on sections 7.1 and 7.2. But as to those sections, not even the authors of the report were in agreement. And it's the NIST report, which we went over in a live couple weeks back. And then they also included it in one of their documents. I forget which, but I'm sure one of the mods in the chat knows, and they'll let you know. 2 of the committee members dissented from the recommendation that DNA analysts should not opine about the possibility or probability of direct or indirect transfer having occurred in a case. Sidebar, NIST included a list of questions should you be called as an expert. It even states you should not opine about the possibility or probability of how and when the DNA arrived. They give you a list of questions If you're called to testify and you're asked this question, this should be your answer. These are some of the answers that you could give. So that's what they're talking about here. For anybody who doesn't understand that, it is in it's in the NIST. One of my mods probably has it. Audrey probably has it. And if she's still here, she can link it, the NIST report. But it's in there. Put differently, there is not even universal agreement amongst the authors of the work on which the defendant relies. Further, as Ms. Nellen explains in her affidavit, there is even more of a divide in the community than the two dissenters in the working group. Here again, for the second time in a single motion, defendant's own expert contradicts his position. According to the recommendation from the working group espoused by the defendant, a DNA expert is not allowed to answer any question of how or when DNA arrived on an object. And that's the NIST report. But defendant's expert goes to great lengths to make the DNA on the knife sheath seem meaningless for the jury based on the very subjects defendant now claims the expert should refuse to discuss. For example, defendant's expert discusses the possibilities of how the DNA arrived on the knife sheath that most benefit the defendant. Quote, Mr. Kohberger could have shed cells of DNA onto the sheath days, weeks, or even months earlier. End quote. And she opines that the DNA was found on a, quote, protected area where a prior handler's DNA might be expected to persist even if the sheath was more recently held or used by someone else. End quote. The defendant's expert's opinion is itself evidence that there is no agreement in the community that DNA experts should not testify on these topics. In all events, it is not the non-unanimous recommendations of a divided working group that determine the admissibility of evidence in Idaho's courts. It's the Idaho Rules of Evidence. And as explained above, Ms. Nellen's opinions are admissible under those rules. The expert testimony disclosed by Ms. Nellen constitutes proper rebuttal testimony. And then it tells you why rebuttal evidence is evidence which explains, repels, counteracts, or disproves evidence has been introduced by, on, or on behalf of the adverse party, right? State v. Moses. Okay. The state disclosed. In its initial expert disclosures, experts from the Idaho State Police Lab, who swabbed the knife sheath for DNA, swabbed the defendant for DNA, and compared the DNA from the knife sheath to the defendant's DNA. Based on those disclosures, the DNA lab analyst who compared the DNA will testify that the defendant's DNA matched the DNA obtained from the knife sheath. The defendant disclosed his DNA expert. Defendant's DNA expert could not refute that the DNA on the knife sheath matched the defendant's DNA, acknowledging, quote, there is good support that Mr. Kohberger's DNA was found on item 1.1, a swab from the knife sheath. Don't forget, there's also item Q14. Instead, the state conveniently leaves that out. There's another swabbing from the back of the sheath, Q14, that was a mixed sample of blood that Kohberger was excluded from. Instead, the disclosure for defendant's DNA expert indicates she will inform the jury that the DNA on an item could be the result of, quote, indirect transfer from skin cell DNA. So the defendant's DNA expert indicates that she is going to inform the jury that the DNA on the sheath could be the result of indirect transfer from skin cell DNA. The disclosure implies the jury should give little weight to the defendant's DNA at the crime scene, because it could just mean the defendant's DNA was nothing more than, quote, innocuously shed skin cells DNA, end quote, prior to the crime, and the knife sheath could be, quote, picked up and transported to a crime scene by someone else who sheds no DNA onto it. Agreed. That's how transfer DNA works. I mean, that is just a fact. That is how transfer DNA works. DNA was found in a location that suggests it would persist for a long time because it was protected. Yeah, she also opines that the DNA was found in a location that suggests it would persist for a long time because it was a protected area of the sheath. Ms. Nowlin's rebuttal disclosure explains and counteracts the disclosure of the defendant's DNA expert. While Ms. Nowlin acknowledges the limitations of the current technology in determining how DNA arrived on an object, she also explains factors that can affect persistence and that may suggest whether DNA arrived on an object via primary or secondary transfer. Ultimately, she concludes that it is more likely the defendant's DNA on the knife sheath arrived via primary transfer, which means, contrary to the defendant's experts' opinions, the DNA on the knife sheath has more significance than the source being defendant. That is textbook rebuttal testimony. Defendant claims, without citation to any authority, that Ms. Nowlin's testimony should be excluded as improper rebuttal evidence because it, quote, appears to be the state's theory of the case, end quote. But, quote, the mere fact that the testimony might well have been presented during a party's case in chief does not by itself make it inadmissible for rebuttal. Moses. Okay. And then quoting State v. Rosencrantz. Okay. True. The state could use Ms. Nowlin's testimony to help the jury understand primary and secondary transfer from the outset. But the value of Ms. Nowlin's testimony to the state is to rebut the defendant's theory that his DNA on the knife sheath is, quote, innocuously shed skin cell DNA. The state properly disclosed Ms. Nowlin both in its initial disclosures and in its rebuttal disclosures. The state may choose to have Ms. Nowlin testify in its case in chief, but it also may wait until rebuttal. The state's disclosures and the nature of Ms. Nowlin's testimony permit the state to make either decision. Okay. Out there. Let me come back over to chat. How you guys doing? Sorry, that was kind of a long one. 10 pages. Okay. So, what do you guys think? Yeah, she opines every improbability into a possibility. There you go, Eddie. Welcome on in, everybody. Sorry, I was in another window reading, so if I missed you, I'm so sorry. Granny Annie, how are you? Welcome in. Silent G, did I miss you? Hope I didn't. Taurus Babe, hi. How are you? P Fox, that's right. Hit that like. Hit it. There's 105 people watching. Either give it a thumbs up or give it a thumbs down. If you're hanging out here and you're listening, do something. Backwoods, hi. How are you? Welcome on in. If there's anybody else I missed, I'm sorry. Appreciate you guys being here. So, what do we think so far? So it looks like Brian's DNA expert and Ms. Nowlin here are gonna go at it about the how and the when the DNA arrived on the sheath and the amount. It's 0.168 nanograms. I'm not exactly sure how that's not considered classic secondary transfer, but that's just my opinion, and I don't know shit, so it's okay. My opinion, I guess, doesn't matter, right? Halls, hi, honey. How are you? Welcome on in. So, where's Twiz? Where's Twiz and Heather? And Kate. Maybe Kane's working today. Where's Right Brain? You told me what you thought, Tara. I didn't see it, honey. Did I miss your comment? Sorry. Maybe I did. I even put my chat at 30 seconds, so the defense expert would be correct. It's possible to have secondary transfer that leaves a single DNA profile but statistically low. Gotcha, Tara. Okay. Thanks, honey. Sorry. I didn't see your comment. In case you guys, for any of you who don't know, if I have documents up here on the screen and I am reading, I'm in another window and I literally can't see you in chat. So sorry, friends. Q-tip DNA. Paco, what up? Welcome in, Paco. How are you? Oh, it's okay. Black and missing children. By all means, don't say sorry. It's okay. Don't even worry about it, darling. Um, that's okay. If you're not up to speed on it. And if somebody's bullying you in my chat or being mean to you, you just go ahead and let me know. I'll take care of it. We welcome everybody who's a newbie, anybody trying to get educated on the case or learn about the case, welcome them in, right? Try to be nice. There's newbies in chat and they have questions. Please be kind and answer the questions. They're probably not trolling. It might be a lot of people just trying to catch up on the case. It is getting a lot more attention now. So, it's always gotten a lot of attention, but please be kind to the newbies. Friends, I appreciate it. Kent, how you doing? Welcome on in. Did you just get here? Did I miss you? Jackie, hello, welcome in. Yeah, Catacomb Man, right? Could be. It sounds like his experts are going to say it's just skin cell DNA that was transferred. I don't think anybody's being mean, Meg P. I just wanted to let her know as a newbie. If she's new here, don't let any, and she's asking questions. I know a lot of people think when newbies pop in and they ask a lot of questions, they're trolling. So, I just don't want anybody to think, So anyways, it would look like here, his expert's going to try and argue this is some skin cell transfer, secondary skin cell transfer. And Riley Nolan wants to argue, no, it wasn't. It's direct transfer based on the amount, which I don't know how she's going to do that with Becca Barlow there, but okay. There she is, right brain. For fuck's sake, Fitziana. Hi, honey. How are you? Hi. Welcome on in. I needed right brain. You girls feeling a little woozy. So, we got through. What did we just do? Whoopsie. Okay. We just went through Motion in Limine number 6, touch and contact DNA. Can close that one out. And then the other one we went through was oh, Heather. See, you popped in and now my brain went blank. Chat, what was the other one we did first? Fingernail clippings. There it is. Annie. Oh boy, get it together, Annie. It was the fingernail clippings one. That was the one we did first. Okay. All right. So. Yeah, I know, right? Backwoods. I'm guessing somebody texted her or found her on Discord and said, hey, Miss Potts is calling for her right brain. I love Heather though. Love her so much. All right. Okay. So, sorry guys, I was trying to remember. It took my brain seriously. I could not remember what the first document was that we went over. So we went over the fingernail clipping thingy, right? And it looks like the likelihood ratios of everybody that one was created for. Ethan had the highest likelihood ratio as being a contributor to the DNA under Maddie Mogan's fingernails. ADHD Stacy, hi honey, welcome on in. It's almost 3 a.m. Tara. Holy shit, girl. Hope you get some sleep. 3 a.m. Damn, that's wild. Oh, no one told you? You're just psychic? See? Love you. She could feel me telepathically calling her. she knew telepathically that I was calling her, right? I think you might be right, Echo, actually, because I'm feeling a little woozy, to be honest with you guys. And I was going to go into the next thing here, but I'm not going to. I actually am feeling like garbage. So, you know what we're going to do? I think I'm going to shut this down because one of these documents that I have open is 18 pages. And um, I know I just can't do 18 pages right now. So, and I'm definitely feeling weird and foggy. So, you know what? Heather, I love you. And I know that you felt me like telepathically calling you here, but I actually am not feeling good. Um, so I'm going to go lay down. I wanted to try and do this today, but you know what? We only got through 2, and that's okay. And maybe later I'll feel better, or maybe tomorrow we'll do a couple more or something. But um, love you guys. I appreciate you being here. Mods, love you. I'm going to go lay down. And I hope you guys have an awesome Friday. And, you know, if I feel up to it, maybe later or maybe tomorrow. Okay. Um, but I got to go. I love you guys. I hope you have a great day and take care. And we'll do some more tomorrow. Okay. Love you guys. Bye. Thank you, mods. I appreciate all of you.